Drive Time, weekdays from 4 on RTÉ Radio 1.
On today's Drive Time, farmers meet the EU Commissioner on retaining the Nitrates Directive. We debate for and against racial abuse and discrimination faced by doctors in the health system, the construction industry and how to stop the housing crisis lasting decades, expert advice on health insurance as policy renewal time beckons, and the lack of public toilets and the Derry solution. That's Drive Time, 4:30, Talk then.
Sarah and Cormac are up next on Drive Time.
Padraig, Drive Time on today's programme.
A deadline extension at the 11th hour for local property tax payment.
Racial abuse and discrimination faced by doctors in our health system.
We debate the Nitrates Directive as farmers face the EU Commissioner.
The construction industry on how to stop the housing crisis lasting decades.
New research on why Ireland is lonely and how to improve it.
Expert advice on health insurance as policy renewal time beckons.
And the lack of public toilets and the Derry solution. And you are very welcome to the programme once again on this Friday afternoon. We're also going to be talking about the Louvre. I don't know if you heard about it. Obviously, there was that very public heist of the Louvre in Paris a couple of weeks ago, and it's now been revealed that the password to their CCTV was, you guessed it, Louvre. So we're going to be talking about
many of us?
We're going to be talking about passwords a little bit later on, and I know it's so difficult for people because you need passwords for everything and they're meant to be different, and how do you remember them? And I know there's apps for storing them, but then you need maybe a password for that. So we're going to be talking about it a little bit later on. What do you do? How do you manage it? 51551 if you want to get in touch on that. 0870 32 32 32.
I'd love your views as well on the debate we'll have just after 5 on whether to allow farmers keep the derogation on nitrates or not. There's a whole financial and efficiency and effective viewpoint from farmers and so on, but a whole climate or an environmental element as well. 51551 on that. And just a note, we're a little bit giddy today because it is myself and Sarah's last day on Drive Time.
But we'll be fresh as always.
Enthusiasm to the end, isn't that it?
That is it. Now, first this afternoon, a short time ago, Revenue confirmed that they're extending the filing deadline for local property tax valuations. We were, of course, speaking of this on the programme just yesterday. We're joined now by Katie Clare, Manager of Revenue's Local Property Tax Branch. And Katie, you're welcome. Why are you extending the date?
Thanks, Sarah. So to assist those in still preparing their returns, we've decided to extend the filing date to 5:30 on Wednesday, next Wednesday, the 12th of November. So to date, we have approximately 1.4 million properties where we have returns on record. We had 42,000 returns filed up to 2 o'clock today. We had nearly 80,000 yesterday and a further 65,000 the day before that. So it's approximately 140,000 returns compared to the same period the last time we did this back in 2021. And we understand that the LPT revaluation and filing process can cause uncertainty for some property owners, especially for those who, it is their first revaluation process. So the extended deadline aims to provide additional time for those to meet those obligations.
Okay. Is it a recognition of the fact that the systems weren't coping as well as maybe you might have hoped with the heavy traffic towards the end of the deadline? As you've said, 80,000 is a big number to be processing.
So the numbers I've just listed there, they've all been processed online and they've been processed successfully. So we don't have any issues with the system. I can assure everybody that the LPT portal is working and that's the best way to file the return. I suppose really it's in recognition that we've had just a massive amount of demand. We're handling about 7,000 phone calls every day. The teams are working extremely hard to answer those queries. So we've been kind of monitoring the helpline on an ongoing basis, and we can see that even this morning we've had about 4,000 callers who've tried to call us who didn't get through. So in addition to that, we also have about 100,000 items of correspondence that we're working through. Those are both postal queries through our My Inquiries online system, and some paper returns. So, I suppose we want to first of all reassure property owners that they will be treated as compliant, provided the returns are filed promptly once those queries are resolved.
I doubt it.
Really,
okay, so if you haven't got through and you're panicking that you haven't got through, you're saying don't panic, it's okay, we will resolve the issue.
We will, and we have extended opening hours on our helpline. So we are opening up our helpline. It's going to be open till 8 o'clock tonight. It'll be open again on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday of next week from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday, Tuesday and 9 a.m. to 4:30 on Wednesday.
Okay.
So I suppose it really is just in recognition of the amount of demand and the amount of activity we're seeing on our system.
How many is outstanding, Katie? How many are you expecting, or do you need to get, really, I suppose, between now and next Wednesday?
So we're still there's still about 750,000 returns to come in, and like I say, we're seeing those thousands of returns coming in on an ongoing basis. It's increasing every hour. So we expect to see a massive surge in activity now again over the weekend and into next week. Okay.
Chance that deadline might be extended again by the sounds of it. 700,000 people between now and next Wednesday is a big ask, isn't it?
Well, we had nearly 50,000 filed already this morning. So, so you know, the numbers are, and there is a kind of consistent increase on a daily basis. So it's rising every day. So we kind of knew that today was going to be our busiest day, because that's typical of customer behaviour. People do respond to deadlines. Okay. Well, thank you for talking to us on the programme this afternoon and bringing us up to date on all of that. That's Katie Clare, Manager of Revenue's Local Property Tax Branch.
Now we're approaching that time of year, aren't we, where private health insurance holders will be entering their renewal period. Consumers should brace themselves for some prime hikes across the market, we're told. Nearly 500,000 members are due to renew on the 1st of January, and they'll be receiving their renewal notices over the course of the next few weeks, about 3 weeks or so. We'll do it with advice. I'm joined on the line by Dermot Good, Director of Health Insurance Ireland. Dermot, good to talk to you.
Good afternoon, Cormac.
So those renewal letters coming out soon, what's your advice?
Yes, so this is the worst time of the year for health insurance customers. So literally in 2 weeks' time, 500,000 people who are due to renew on the 1st of January are going to get those notices. And Cormac, they're not going to be happy. If they're lucky, they'll get away with 10% of an increase. Most are going to average around 15%. And people on the most expensive, the older plans, what we would call the dated schemes, they're facing increases of maybe up to 27%. So our first advice to people is don't wait until you get those renewal notices. You know it's coming. The problem is, if you start doing your research in 3 weeks' time, you're going to struggle to get through to the insurance companies, just simply due to the sheer volume of people that will be doing, like your previous piece on the show. So we would suggest to people, start the process now. You don't necessarily have to wait until that renewal notices lands.
Yeah.
Or because we already know the rates.
That's really good advice. Get ahead of it. But do what then exactly, practically?
Well, what we would say to everybody is, look, the first thing you should do, the first port of call, is phone your existing insurance company. So be prepared for a huge increase of, as I say, up to 25%, depending on the plan. You should phone your existing insurance company firstly, simply tell them you can't afford that renewal, and you challenge them to find you a similar plan with similar benefits that obviously is lower cost, and don't be afraid to disclose your exact budget to them. And if you do that, and like people give out about the number of plans, but really, if you change the focus of the conversation, let the insurance company go through all of their plans. Let them trawl through the 150 plans they have to find you a more suitable scheme. And then, Cormac, if they do propose something different that sounds promising, your next question is, great, tell me, how does that compare to my current plan? What am I losing and what am I gaining and what stays the same? And the people who do that are digging out really, really good deals. And I would say to people right now, the other thing that I was calling out was that as I was doing my analysis, there are so many plans that are on the market now for over 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And what's happening is a lot of older members in particular who are terrified of making any changes to their cover, they just auto-renew each year. But when you add on 25% to the cost of those older plans, that could mean an extra €1,000 per adult.
Well, based on what you're saying, auto renewal every year with the same policy, same provider, seems like a disaster to me. I mean, you need to interrogate this, don't you? I mean, 27% of an increase is huge, really. Here's a problem that I see, Dermot. If people are asking their provider to come back with a plan that's similar, and even giving the budget, it's bamboozling. You know, sometimes you don't know if it matches exactly what your needs are.
And look, absolutely. And that's where the engagement piece. So the people who are going to struggle with this are the people who try and do it themselves or do it online. You need to phone the insurance companies because they know all the plans. And if you ask that question in terms of find me a similar plan with similar benefits that's cheaper, those calls are all recorded. And to be fair to each of the health insurance companies, for the people who do engage and ask the right questions, they will get the right answers. And right now, they've all launched a whole range of similar plans that are more affordable. Like VHI have Premium Care. They just brought out Premium Care Select, which is cheaper. I mean, Leia Healthcare have this Prosper Advanced scheme, which is significantly cheaper than some of the older schemes on the market. Like, people are shocked sometimes to find that there is a very similar plan that matches their exact requirements, and they can literally save thousands. But the biggest mistake that you mentioned, Cormac, is the auto renewal. And what's going to happen is a lot of older people are thinking that when Dermot Good talks about switching, you know, they think that means changing to another insurer, and they're not comfortable doing that. But what they don't realise is nearly 60% of people who shop around will get a better deal with the exact same insurance company. So you need to start with your current insurer and ask them those questions first of all. And especially, like, people will ask me, how do I know I'm on a dated plan? If your plan is 5-10 years old, just think of all the increases that have happened. That plan has been hit by those increases. That's straight away a red flag. Okay.
My final question to you is this. Could you turn the tables here, and instead of taking a price hike, could you not say there's plenty of policies, plenty of providers out there? I'm going to look for an actual decrease in price here, like you mentioned there. Could you actually, and you said give them a price, give them what you can afford. Could you quote something lower than what you're on?
Oh, undoubtedly. And look, so there's a principle that we always follow, which is managed risk. So, for example, sometimes it makes perfect sense to take on a slightly lower plan because the savings you're going to make are going to more than offset any extra risk. So, for example, anybody who doesn't have a small excess on their policy, anybody who's not on an up-to-date corporate plan, they are already throwing money away. They need to take on that small excess because the savings could be up to 20% just for taking on a small excess. So the best first step for anybody, whether you're joining or renewing, you know, before you phone anybody, just decide how much can I afford? How much do I want to spend for my family on this? And you might be charged $4,000 now, but your ideal budget could be $2,500. And tell them that. And you see, a lot of people think you should never disclose your budget. But with health insurance, one of the good things with our legislation is every price per plan is set. So if you tell them your budget, you're going to be charged the same as everybody else. You won't be charged more because you've effectively showed your hand. But that is the best starting point. And many people, particularly on the really old plans, like my kind of, I suppose, red line here is if you're spending more than $2,500 per adult, there has to be a clear reason for that. And too many people, especially older members, there isn't. It's just inertia.
I love your crystal clear advice, I must say. Thank you so much. Dermot Good, Director of Health Insurance Ireland.
Now, a young woman who claimed to be Madeleine McCann has been convicted of harassing the missing toddler's family. However, Julia Wandelt, who is aged 24, was cleared of stalking the couple. With the details, we're joined on the line by Julian Drucker of Channel 5 News. Julian, can you give us the background to the story?
Hi there, Sarah. Yeah, the parents of Madeleine McCann, they have obviously dealt with lots of internet trolls in the years since their daughter went missing in Portugal in 2007. Hugely high-profile missing persons case. These two women on trial were accused of going so much further than anyone else ever has. Allegations of stalking and harassment and contacting the family and even turning up at their home as well.
And what do we know about Julia Wandelt herself?
Well, she is a Polish national. She claimed to be Madeleine, even though she was actually born 3 years after her. She said she thought she'd been abducted and brought up by a couple who were not her real parents. And she even claimed to have a blemish in the iris of her right eye, like Madeleine has. Now, she's posted all these claims to hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. She went on US TV variously. Ultimately, she turned up at the McCann's home in Leicestershire in England and sent sinister letters and messages to them. And phone calls as well. She actually messaged Kate McCann more than 60 times in one day. This was on a day last year. Now, in court, she denied that her claims were driven by a desire for money or for fame as well.
You mentioned she had a co-accused, and also in court, she was convicted of harassing the missing toddler's family, but cleared of stalking the couple.
That's right. So her co-accused was Karen Spragg. And today, a judge said that Mrs. Spragg had indulged Julia Wandelt and she'd loved the drama. Now, she was cleared of stalking and harassment, but a restraining order means that both women are banned from entering the whole county of Leicestershire. Julia Wandelt was found guilty of harassment. She may now be deported back to Poland. She has already served time on remand in prison, so she's effectively done the 6 months that she was today sentenced to.
And any reaction from the McCann family?
Well, they've issued a statement in the last few hours. They have said, in their words, despite the jury's guilty verdict of harassment, we take no pleasure in the result. Like most people, we did not want to go through a court process and only wanted the harassment to stop. Now, in this statement, at the heart of all of it, actually at the end of the statement, they mention, of course, their missing daughter, Madeleine, and they urge people at the end of this statement, Sarah, to contact police if they have any new information.
All right, Julian Drucker of Channel 5 News. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Now, public toilets, or the lack of them, are something most of us don't think about until we really need to go. In Northern Ireland, one council has come up with a really creative solution. Wait, you hear this? Derry City and Strabane District Council, well, they're now paying local cafes and shops to open their toilets to the public. No purchase necessary. It's the only scheme of its kind in the north, and it's certainly getting people talking. For more on this, I'm joined by Sinn Féin councillor Aisling Hutton, who chairs the council's Health and Communities Committee. Aisling, you're very welcome to the programme. People treat this with levity, I know, but it's a very serious issue for any community when there's a lack of public toilets. Explain the scheme to me.
Yeah, hello Cormac, thanks for having me on. Yeah, so the scheme was initially launched back in 2018, and I suppose with the lack of advertisement around it, and then obviously we had COVID and we had social distancing and we were trying to keep people safe through hygiene issues and that. Mm-hmm. It didn't relaunch again until 2023, and now there's a bit of an uptick on it as well here in 2025. So it was about putting toilets throughout the city and district so that people like families, older people, people with disability could plan a trip out, could plan a day maybe down the quay or up around Strabane or Castlederg, knowing that they had access to clean, friendly and accessible toilet and changing facilities.
Okay.
So,
how much are they paid then? How much does the council pay?
It depends on the facility that you can provide. You're paid between £300 and £1,000. So it just depends on the type of facility. You could have a small cafe with just one toilet and a wash hand basin, or you could have a local business that has access to male, female toilets and a changing facility for people that are disabled and a baby. So that all just depends, Cormac.
Okay, and how many businesses have signed up so far, and how is the public told which businesses are part of the scheme? So how do you know where you can go?
So Sarah, there is around 17 businesses at the minute between Derry City and Strabane District Council. So that goes right up to Castlederg. And people are informed about it on the council website. And also each business that has signed up has a large sort of bluish sticker on its window saying that it is a community toilet. So there's about 17, but that said, that's all private businesses. But every council, civic building and leisure centre is also a community toilet facility as well.
Okay, I mean, it's a great idea because we've spoken on this programme over the last couple of months about the problems in Dublin. It's really expensive to provide toilets in St Stephen's Green in Dublin, and in other parts of the country as well. People are running into problems. So you can see how this would potentially be a fix. What though if businesses find, there's just this steady stream of people in and out to the toilet and actually they don't want this anymore? It's not good for business.
Well, that's up to the business to come to council then and say that it's not working for them. But most businesses that are on the council website and have signed up to the scheme are saying that it is working very, very well, that the footfall that's coming in through their business has provided them with more customers, and it's also showcasing some of the beautiful buildings where businesses are situated throughout the town. But if a business is feeling that there are too many people coming through the doors, then there is ways that they can speak to council about that and look at ways of maybe making it sort of less accessible at certain times.
I was in Derry not so long ago, maybe a year and a half or so ago. We did a programme actually from it. And I was blown away, I must say, Aisling, by how beautiful Derry City was.
It's stunning.
It really was. Now, we got a good day as well, which always helps in Ireland, doesn't it? But
yes, it does.
Answer me this though. Why is this a better scheme than actually putting in a public toilet?
Well, I think that it's a better scheme basically because you're going to have more locations, so there's better coverage of toileting facilities for people that actually need the toilet more often than others. And as I said before, it gives people more independence to plan a trip. And I suppose it's great for the businesses, for the footfall, and it's also, it creates a wider network of toilets as well, and people can find them more easily. But it lowers the cost as well for local authorities. Public toilets are expensive to build. You have to clean them, you have to make them secure, maintain them. So, and also there's a higher quality and better hygiene, I feel, as well.
I'm sorry, finally, to put my grubby legal hat on here, but does the council then share with all this extra footfall and not necessarily extra custom? Would the council share any of the liability if there was a slip and fall, for example?
No, if you want to become a community toilet scheme, you have to have your own public liability insurance. That's part of the criteria. And you have to have toilets that are safe and accessible as well. So no, it's not on council's public liability. It's on the actual business itself. That's part of the criteria to sign up.
Well, look it's very interesting indeed. I'd love to know what people think of this. 51551 0870 32 32 32 from anywhere. But helping people go since 2018 in various community toilets, Derry City and Strabane District Council. Sinn Féin Councillor Aisling Hutton, thank you very much indeed.
The Louvre is facing fresh scrutiny over its security deficiencies after an €88 million heist, as it was revealed that the easiest of passwords gave access to the museum's video surveillance. The password was simply Louvre. So much for security. We're joined on the line by Joe McCann, Director of Intercept Technologies and Cyber Security Specialist. And we may scoff, Joe, but who among us, hasn't had or continues to have way too easy passwords? It is the Louvre, though, isn't it? We would expect a more secure, high profile or a complicated password for them, wouldn't we?
Yeah, good evening, Sarah. That's very true. You'd expect that the Louvre would have appropriate and proportionate technical organisational measures in place to protect and prevent such attacks like this taking place. I mean, it is something that it's not too sophisticated to take place, right?
I mean, when people are trying to crack passwords, is it true that they basically just keep on guessing? Is that what they do? They just start with the easiest ones and go on from there, or is there technology to try and crack passwords?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think in relation to how easy it is or simplistic it is, there are tools out there that adversaries use as well as ethical hackers that they use in order to brute force passwords, is what we call it. And often this is a combination of 18 billion passwords in one list, and these automated tools help both adversaries and ethical hackers breach these passwords within a matter of 3 to 8 seconds.
Wow.
Do you know, I do understand obviously that Louvre is too simplistic a password, but I mean, some of the passwords that are recommended to make them really robust, Joe, #12Louvre, on a holiday 567. Do you know, if you have passwords that robust and that difficult to remember, and you have 15
that wasn't
passwords,
actually that robust, difficult to remember, but okay.
Some of them were uppercase.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? And you have 15 to remember. I mean, it's very difficult, isn't it, for the average Joe, let's say, to you'd have to write them down somewhere, when that then is susceptible to hacking.
Yeah, you're very true. Look, the industry are seeing a change from passwords to passphrases. And the passphrases are often use of uppercase, lowercase, symbols, letters and numeric numbers together, right? And I suppose there's this concept of password vaults for the end user or for the user at home that are looking to have a password vault. There are many of them out there in relation to you will have passwords of this complexity, and often many people don't know what their password is because it's so complex. Yeah. But those technical organisation measures I spoke earlier on about will help protect the master password, so to speak, and the controls that are put in place. So to give you an example, one would have assumed in the event of unauthorised access, you would have controls in place such as conditional access policies that you cannot log in outside of France, or perhaps it's Europe. in relation to, unauthenticated access. There's also this concept within the corporate environment of identity access management, multi-factor authentication, and biometrics. Yeah.
Okay, you should be advising the Louvre by the sound of it, Joe. They could do with your help. I'm very interested to hear from listeners in this 51551. How do you manage all the different passwords that you have to manage? Joe McCann, Director of Intercept Technologies and Cybersecurity Specialist. Thank you very much.
Now, farmers and political representatives have been meeting with European Commissioner Jessica Roswall today as the EU prepares to decide whether Irish farmers get to retain the nitrates derogation for another 4 years. Because under the current exemption, farmers here are allowed to exceed the standard nitrogen application limit. But that could all change at the next meeting of the EU Nitrates Committee next month even. That's how urgent it is, where European lawmakers are set to rule on the future of the derogation up to the end of 2029. Now, European Commissioner for Environment, Water Resilience and a Competitive Circular Economy, Jessica Roswall, visited a derogation farm in County Kildare today and had meetings with stakeholders and Agriculture Minister Martin Hayden. Earlier in the day, she met public representatives, and joining me on the line now are two of those that were at that meeting, Social Democrat TD Jennifer Whitmore and Independent Ireland MEP Kieran Mullooly. You're both very welcome indeed to the programme. Kieran, I might start with you. How did you reckon that meeting went?
Good evening, Cormac. Firstly, I welcome the very fact that Commissioner Jessica Roswall came over here. On the 10th of October last year, she was in my office in Strasbourg, and I said straight out to her, have you been on the ground? Have you seen the situation on farms and indeed in municipal waste situations around Ireland? Come over. So she did that. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And I think she came with an open mind. She made it very clear, let's be honest, she made it very clear this issue has to be resolved. But she talked today, both this morning when she visited farm in Kildare and later on this afternoon, about her optimism that we can find a sustainable solution. And that's my view as well. Nobody is denying there are problems. There are problems with regard to pollution in wastewater treatment plants all over the country. There are issues that farmers must face up to in parts of the country as well. But the issue here, Cormac, is time. We need farmers to be given a manageable period of time, and indeed the local authorities in Uisce, so we can face up to these issues and deal with them.
Yeah, but climate activists are saying that the only sustainable solution really is to end the derogation.
Well, in my case, I'll give you an example of this. I don't think that's possible without having a significant economic effect on our country. And I think this is why I raised it with the Commissioner initially, and that's why I asked her again today to look at this issue of time. I'll give you an example of it. Mm-hmm. We are heavily reliant. If you take a place like County Cork in Ireland, there are 2,100 farmers in Cork, Cormac, who are in derogation. Now, these are farmers who are producing some of the most significant portion of milk, dairy milk in the country. If the derogation goes, they will lose significantly. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands. Yet the reality is, the EPA will back this up, that the EPA's intensive water quality assessments of Cork have actually shown that there has been an improvement in water quality in their part of the country. So I would say it'd be most unfair to penalise people in that situation.
Let me go straight to Jennifer Whitmore on that. I think you want to end derogation, maybe not immediately, Jennifer, but you want to end it sooner possibly than Kieran, I think, would be fair. What do you make of the example he's given in Cork?
Yeah, so look, Cormac, my position, and I come at this not only as a TD, but I'm an aquatic ecologist as well. So my position, Social Democrats' position, is we want to protect farmers, we want to protect farming businesses, but we also want to protect our environment. And whilst Kieran mentions, that farmers need more time, the reality is the derogation has been in place in Ireland since 2006. The derogation has always been given to farmers in Ireland on the basis that there was improvements in river quality and water quality, and since 2006 we have never seen any improvements in that water quality.
In fact, Cork there is.
That's not true.
I think maybe on some small level, but across the country there has not been. So the latest EPA report, which was a 3-year assessment, shows that only 52% of our water bodies are in good ecological health. That is down from the previous EPA assessment. We in the 1990s we had 500 pristine rivers in Ireland. We now have 20, and when you look at the impact that has on our on our fish populations, on nature, since the 1970s we have had 90% reduction in salmon. Now, I'm not saying all of that is down to agriculture, but agriculture is the main driver of pollution in our water
systems. Let me stop you there. 500 to 20 clean rivers, Kieran. That's a crisis. We need to end it, surely.
We certainly need to deal with the situation, but Jennifer Whitmer can't ignore the fact that farmers have consistently made improvements in many parts of the country. I refer to Cork. If she wants to go with the statistics, 67% of the rivers are classified by the EPA as having good or high ecological status, well above the national average. So we have to recognise farmers have been making a consistent effort here.
67%. I mean, that's... Considering you've been trying this for 20 years now, Kieran, 67% isn't a great record. And when you look at across the country, 44% of rivers in this country have far too many nitrates, and that is directly because of agriculture.
There's another small factor which Jennifer very, very conveniently forgets from time to time. That's the lack of investment by our state and hEadhra in recent times in some of the infrastructure that's also, and some of the pollution was also responsible. This very afternoon, I have to tell you, Cormac, I got a message from a domestic house owner in Mongáín, County Westmeath, telling me about the local hEadhra Collinstown water treatment plant, which is consistently polluting Loch Derivara. Now, hEadhra have told hEadhra tell us there will be work done in 2030. That's the scheduled time to deal with that. Now, how can farmers be criticised when at the same time our state are way behind on these issues?
I absolutely criticise hEadhra for not doing what they need to do in relation to water quality. I will criticise anyone that is damaging water. What I will say is...
Sorry, in fairness, they say they're doing a lot, and if they got more money, they'd do more.
And they would. What I want to say is, because I do want to bring some... nitrates pollution is from agriculture. It is not from infrastructure or hEadhra, that's phosphate. So it's a different issue. Nitrates is from agriculture. So when we're talking about the nitrates derogation...
just if I may jump in here. I don't think any of you are disagreeing with the need to end the derogation. Correct? It's only time, is it, Kieran?
No, I mean, I was quite happy, pleased to hear Jennifer say this afternoon. She's now talking about, she doesn't want to see the Commissioner dropping all the farmers of Ireland and the local authorities of Ireland off the edge here. She wants a period of time to deal with it.
Yeah, so but you have to what's the timeline then is the question?
Well, if you give me a practical example, farmers are trying to deal with their side of the equation. I have seen farmers in the last 12 months going out and spending up to €50,000 on sophisticated new equipment that allows them to ensure that when they're spreading slurry or fertilizer, these emissions are going down, the pollution risk is lower. They're spending money, they're getting smarter. Things we didn't have 20 years ago are now being used. Extensive, even satellite when it comes to spreading fertilizer and manure. We're beginning to
but let me push you on this now.
Given time.
Yeah, let me push you on this now, because if we allow the derogation until 2029, I bet my house on it, Kieran, that there's going to be another campaign to extend it further then.
Well, will it be the Irish government asking, or hEadhra asking, if that lake in County Westmeath is still being polluted every time we have a storm or a flood action in the area? I mean, who's going to answer for that? That's the issue I'm asking about here. I look at the overall pollution of our lakes and our rivers, and I see the local authorities and the municipal authorities as responsible in many areas, and even more responsible.
But hang on, do you not see the logic here? You're saying allow the derogation because the rivers are polluted, but the nitrates are polluting the river.
No, what I'm saying is allow the farmers to prepare and continue the good work they're doing in terms of dealing with the situation. I'm saying that in many areas, and Jennifer knows this because the EPA published 3 reports prior to the summer this year, we saw significant improvements in water quality.
But hold on a second. Allowing nitrates is causing pollution. Do you accept that?
But this has been a feature. I made the point a few minutes ago. I made this point a few moments ago. In the Ireland I was born in, many farmers in the first instance weren't even aware that they were polluting the land. In fact, if I remember quite rightly, in the old days, Teagasc, or the previous farmers, came to our house to encourage farmers to spread nitrogen.
Ignorance is no defence.
You have to realise, Cormac, what's changed over the course of the last 20 years.
Ignorance is no defence. We know this for a long time now. But
that wasn't ignorance.
Well, you said they didn't know.
Can I just come in there? Because the reality is, Kieran, in the Ireland you were born into, farmers weren't polluting the environment the way we are now. The reason we're seeing these pollution levels is because of, and it's not down to the farmers, it's government policy that has continually forced them into a more intensive route. And that is the problem. And we need to step away from that. We need to help farmers move to an environmentally sound way of running their businesses, because that is exactly what it is. And yes, we need farms in our rural communities, but our rural communities also deserve to have clean rivers running through them, where that there is anglers can fish, where there's tourism opportunities, where children can swim in the rivers.
They fear being put out of business. That's the long and short of it.
It needs to be possible, and it is possible to do both. It absolutely is. But what we need is government to support farmers. First, we need government to accept that there is a problem. The problem is that we have not, and they have not protected our environment. They see our rivers as drains, and they do not protect the environment. So we need government to say, okay, there has been a problem. How we've been managing this is wrong. We've been forcing farmers into the wrong policies, and now we need to work with farmers to actually farm sustainably. And I tell you, there
Jennifer,
are so many farmers who want to do that.
Absolutely bonkers with that statement. They see rivers as drains. I think
I was going to ask, is suggesting local authorities see them or farmers see them?
No, it's not farmers. Sorry, no, the government sees them, and actually in the legislation, our rivers
are you clarifying that? Are you retracting that? The farmers see rivers as drains? Because I know an awful lot of farmers.
Hold on,
Cormac, because it's most unfair, but it is. I mean, just pointed out the work that's been done.
Let her respond.
I absolutely did not say farmers see it as drains. I was talking about the government, and actually, I absolutely did not. And in legislation, our rivers are determined, and they're called channels. And that is how the government sees it.
Okay.
Farmers don't. Let me tell you this, no farmer gets up in the morning and thinks, well, they want to pollute.
Okay.
They don't. They know as well as anyone else that we need healthy rivers.
Okay.
What we need is a government that is going to work with them to do it, but we also need bravery, political bravery, and we did not see that. And let me tell you, out of a public meeting today, or a meeting today with 15 public reps, Irish public reps discussing it, I was the only public rep to actually raise river health and environmental considerations with the Commissioner, and that was awful.
Okay, let me ask you about this now to finish up with crystal clarity from both of you. Should the decision be made now to allow this derogation of nitrates directive until 2029, should farmers be allowed to use nitrates until then, Jennifer?
No, what we need is a shorter time frame and a supported, just transition, so financial supports, technical supports, advice from government, that farmers have that, but we need to transition farmers away from the derogation.
So you're
the reality is,
2 years, 2027.
2 years. Let's say 2 years, whatever can be achieved. But you're correct, Cormac, in what you're saying. In 2029, we are going to be back here again if that derogation is given, and the farming lobby groups and politicians like Kieran are going to be saying, give us another year or two. We can show that we can get this done.
Kieran.
We actually need to move them away now.
I live in the countryside at Cormac. Clearly, who you're listening to on the other end there lives in an urban constituency. Many of the issues which he's referring to
I'm from County Wexford, Kieran.
It might be acceptable for you to suggest that we could solve these problems in the next 4 years, and we could turn off the tap and we could send the derogation back. That's not living in the real world. I live in a situation where farmers where the industry, where the country is relying on employment and the income involved here. And people are relying on farmers. Today, the minister went to see a farmer. The lady on that farm has come home from Australia to make a living here. If she loses the derogation, Cormac, she loses €40,000 of income. That makes the farm non-viable in many cases around the country. So at the end of the day, Jennifer has to live in the real world of this. We need the 4-year extension. We need to continue the good work we've been doing, specifically using science in particular, and we will see improvements as we have seen around the country over the course of the last year.
Even a more fundamental question to you, Kieran, before we finish. Is it living in the real world to forego any climate action now?
No, I don't. I don't say that at all, and I don't know why you would say if you listen to the people I listen to in farming and in environmental circles, they wouldn't agree with you at all on that.
Okay. Look, Kieran Mullooly, MEP, thank you very much indeed. Jennifer Whitmore, Social Democrat, TD, thank you. You can have your say, 51551.
There's some breaking news. Northern Ireland's Deputy First Minister has said she will not be attending the inauguration of Catherine Connolly. Emma Little-Pengelly said she'd received an invitation for the event, but added that she had other commitments for Remembrance Day. First Minister Michelle O'Neill will attend the inauguration at Dublin Castle, and that news just coming through in the last couple of moments. Some of your text to 51551, we were talking about passwords, and one person said that passwords are easy. Mine have never been being broken even though they're easy. For instance, pick something physical like a car or a ship. Pick a person associated with it, pick a date synonymous with it, make a case sensitive, and even change the language. Infinite variations from 8 characters. One of mine for a customer hasn't been broken in 30 years. Pity I can't make money from it, says Richie in Wexford.
I'd say, Richie, you could. If you set up a domain name, you'll have money.
Just don't tell anybody, Richie, how you do it.
Titanic Bruce Esme, capital B. A texter says, I'm sick of hearing about the nitrates directive. It's an excuse for farmers to dump out slurry all year round. That's one texter's view. And on public toilets and that scheme in Derry, there should be public toilets in Dublin City, says one listener, and employ people to work at them. Well, there you go.
Keep your text coming to 51551. Now, the Department of Finance this week released its Future 40 report, which assessed the economic and fiscal challenges facing the state between now and 2065. And there was grim analysis of Ireland's housing crisis, which it says could last another 15 years. The report based its estimate of future housing demand on current demographic trends, the growing preference for smaller households and the pent-up demand that has accumulated in recent years. In the central scenario, housing supply is assumed to reach 60,000 by 2030, which would be a significant acceleration on the 30,300 delivered last year, and then expected to remain at that level until no longer required. The report noted that the number of workers in residential construction would need to grow considerably by 50,000, according to one estimate, to meet these targets. Well, we're joined now by Andrew Brownlee, Chief Executive of the Construction Industry Federation. And Andrew, you're very welcome. It's been a very busy week, I know, for the CIF. We had this report and you were in various Oireachtas committees as well during the week. What's your own take on what the Future 40 report has to say?
Good evening, Sarah. Look, I mean, I think it's a really interesting report full of really important insight and analysis. But I think the important aspect of it is the scenario you set out there is on the basis of a no policy change scenario. And in fact, there's been immense kind of policy change around housing and infrastructure recently. And actually, you know, if you look back 15 years in the midst of the financial crisis, the IMF dictating economic policy, no one would have set out a scenario then that would have bounced back so strongly with the economy growing in the way it has. So I suppose our view is that things change very quickly. We're seeing real policy intent from the government around housing and infrastructure. And if we can see some of the key blockages removed, and that's absolutely key for our members, then we think housing supply can ramp up much more quickly.
I know you said at the Oireachtas Committee during the week that up to 5,000 construction workers are seeking work abroad because of uncertainty in the Irish construction sector. I think people will be really surprised to hear that, given, you know, there is so much demand for housing. How could there be uncertainty in the Irish construction sector?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, CSO statistics show between 2,400 and 4,900 construction workers a year leave Ireland. And I suppose what our members are telling us is that, you know, there is a lack of certainty, particularly around those big infrastructure projects. And they are really key to unlocking our future housing supply, you know, getting the water, getting the energy, getting the transport infrastructure in place that can allow housing developments to proceed. And, you know, our members are telling us, like, you know, we don't see that clear long-term critical pipeline. And I think that's a lot of the work of the Accelerating Infrastructure Task Force is designed to kind of put that pipeline in place so our members can have the certainty around when projects are going to happen, where they're going to happen, how much they're going to involve, and then we can plan to have the workforce ready and have the capacity ready to deliver.
Can I ask you about that central scenario of housing supply assumed to reach 60,000 by 2030? You know, it's 2025, heading into 2026. Very difficult to believe it, but that's where we're almost there. And only 30,300 houses delivered last year, and the expectation seems to be that it's not going to be a whole lot more than that this year. How do we double that in 4 years?
Well, I think there's a few things we need to do, Sarah. So first of all, it seems kind of obvious, but zone more land. You know, the Minister's been clear that's what he expects local authorities to do, the Section 28 letter. And we need more local authorities to be more proactive around that. I think we've seen Dublin City Council, Cork City Council taking steps in that regard, but we need to see the others step up to the plate there as well. They also need to be granting more planning permissions as well. But look, there is an opportunity for kind of short-term fast tracking of housing development around the provision of essential infrastructure. And there was really interesting development yesterday with the first kind of meeting of the Housing Activation Office delivery and industry groups. And I suppose the whole purpose of that office, it was something the CIF called for, is to get all the infrastructure providers around the table with the delivery bodies like the local authorities, the land development agencies, and with the industry players who know the sites that can be brought forward, you know, if a piece of infrastructure can be facilitated, you know, in order to bring forward units. And I think that will be really important to get, you know, short-term change in terms of getting unlocking the housing supply.
Because, you know, a lot of what you said there, you know, we need to see more planning permissions, we need to see more zoning, you know, we really have been hearing that for years, haven't we?
Yeah, and look, we need to switch to a more kind of practical focus, like, you know, what are the specific sites where we can unlock significant additional housing units? And I think that's what that office is going to try to do. And, you know, I can give you two examples. You know, we there's one site that our members have identified with potential to deliver 3,500 units. All it needs is a public access road and a sewer connection. So you're looking at an estimated cost of 20 million. So if you find that, you fast track that, you can get those houses on stream within a couple of years. So another one with potential to deliver 5,000 units needs wastewater and a road connection, estimated cost of 40 million. So there are actually ways to fast track these projects. That is interesting. But those things like the wastewater connection or the road connection or the sewer connection, do those things in themselves cause problems then? I mean, do you need planning for those, or are you likely to run into problems trying to get those up and running? Yeah, they do. Right. And I suppose this is one of the major kind of blights, you know, when we're trying to get that sense of the pipeline of infrastructure, we're trying to align it with our housing development needs and our housing opportunities. Like the processes and the decisions can be stalled, particularly by things like judicial reviews, which is obviously another area that's been in the news lately. And, you know, that's a real bugbear of our sector. I think it's a real bugbear of government. Like, there is a role for judicial reviews, but we have a very similar legal system to the UK. If you look at the average number of judicial reviews per million of the population, in Ireland it's 26, in the UK it's 5. Okay. So we and are there has been, as you say, an awful lot of talk around changing that, and we'll see what happens there. Andrew, it's interesting to talk to you, and thank you for joining us in the programme. That's Andrew Brownlee, Chief Executive of the Construction Industry Federation. The majority of Irish adults say they've either never heard of or don't understand laws on assisted decision-making. In new Red C research launched by Safeguarding Ireland today, almost half were not aware of the greater legal responsibilities it places on health services, banks, utilities and government services to support the voice of all adults. The research marks Adult Safeguarding Day, coordinated by Safeguarding Ireland, supported by the HSE. And to tell us more, we're joined now by Safeguarding Ireland Chairperson Patricia Ricard-Clark. Patricia, you're welcome. You might just remind us firstly of the provisions of the assisted decision-making law. What exactly does it provide for?
It provides for support and puts in place structures to assist people and support them in making their decisions. So in other words, we ratified as a nation, we ratified the UN Convention on the Right of People with Disabilities. Yeah, I tell you what, actually, Patricia, I'm going to stop you there for a second because the line is very bad. I don't know what's going on there. We're going to take a quick break and see if we can fix that line. Have Safeguarding Ireland Chairperson Patricia Ricard-Clark back on the line. And Patricia, my apologies about that. You were talking us through the provisions of the assisted decision-making law.
Yes, it was enacted in 2015 and came into operation in 2023. And it's really our obligation, our state's obligation, to comply with our human rights obligations under the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disability. So the Act provides puts in place supports and arrangements for a person whose capacity is at issue or where a person has communication difficulties. And really it's recognising that everybody has the right to have their voice heard and to be involved.
Oh my God, we appear to have lost Patricia again. We'll see if we can get her back up on the line, because I want to talk to her about what kind of decisions might be covered on the Act. I mean, I think it can go down to day-to-day decisions such as what to eat and what to wear, and right up to much more complex decisions such as whether to buy or sell a house or have a surgical procedure or what to do with a large sum of money. And all of these, of course, are affecting people in their everyday lives. I think, do we have Patricia back up on the line yet? Yeah, we've almost got Patricia back up on the line. Interested to hear from listeners on this as well, if this is something that has affected your own lives, because so many of us now are in caring positions where we might have people in our lives who need to have some, if a person has capacity or doesn't have capacity until proved otherwise. I don't think we have Patricia up on the line. We might have to take another quick break. Yeah, we'll take a quick break. Patricia back on the line again. And Patricia, I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with the phone lines today. I talked to listeners through with the kind of decisions that are covered by the Act. I'm wondering though, what happens in a situation where somebody might make a decision or might be, if someone makes what might be considered an unwise decision, what happens in that instance?
Well, a person can make whatever decisions, and many of us make unwise decisions. The Act provides really that if a person, an unwise decision doesn't mean that a person lacks capacity. In the past, like if a person's decision-making capacity was challenged, then there was an assumption that if they made an unwise decision, they lacked capacity. So the Act is very clear on that. So again, it's really the decisions that we can make are about our personal affairs, our money and our healthcare decisions. And the formal arrangements that one can put in place is depending on our level of capacity. So if, say, for example, I'm diagnosed with dementia and I'm forgetful or I've had a stroke, I need somebody to assist me I can still make my decision, but I may need support to get information, to interpret information. And then if a bit more challenged, there's another I can enter into a co-decision making agreement and have somebody make a decision jointly with me. And then when I lack capacity, if I haven't already planned ahead and put in place an enduring power of attorney or an advanced healthcare directive, then it's an application to the court, and the court will appoint a decision-making representative. What's really important, though, about the Act is that those people who are given the authority to assist and support a person should be recognised by organisations and services who are engaging with them. So really important. Again, we tend to think that family members have an automatic right to make decisions on our behalf if our capacity is challenged. That is not correct unless we appoint them and give them authority under one of the arrangements under the Act.
Okay, and you say, for example, banks, you're talking about institutions, yes. Banks and utilities, they have a legal responsibility to take necessary steps.
These steps to support a person. Now, also very importantly, under the Act, a new state agency was set up called the Decision Support Service. One of its legal functions, again, is to give information to people about setting up those arrangements. The website is www.decisionsupportservice.ie with a phone number of 01 211 9750. It also has the responsibility of oversight of those people that are appointed to ensure that they're carrying out the obligations that they have been given and the authority they've been given.
And just finally then, how do you ensure that the person's decision supporter doesn't just have the legal authority to speak on their behalf, but to ensure that that person is acting in their best interest? Or is there a way of doing that?
Well, the Decision Support Service will have a register. So when I say the Decision Support Service have oversight, when these arrangements are put in place, the Decision Support Service will either be notified or they have a register. So if I'm in a bank and I meet somebody and they tell me they've one of those arrangements like co-decision making agreement, I can check that up and establish that with the Decision Support Service. But it's really important, again, if people are actually saying that they have that authority, it can be checked, and people shouldn't provide a service to somebody who just says they have that authority without actually verifying that they have that authority.
And one of our listeners is asking about the costs for assisted decision support.
Well, there's no cost in making a decision-making agreement or a co-decision-making agreement. There is some cost if one is making an enduring power of attorney, in terms of you need a statement from a solicitor to say you understand the implications of doing this. There's no cost in making an advanced healthcare directive. And that's why it's so important. All the information is on the decision support website with templates, and people can download those or get somebody to download on their behalf. Read the document, complete the documentation, and then file it back with the Decision Support Service. Decision Support Service themselves also, you can phone them and they will help and assist a person. Okay. So the Act is very clear on the steps that need to be taken and the safeguards that are there.
Sorry, I said finally, but this is actually my final question. In terms of the services people are engaging with then, do you think most of them understand their legal responsibilities under the Act, or is there a lack of information and understanding there?
Absolutely. So again, our survey indicated that 46% again of services don't, and 13% don't know or don't understand. So that's a huge issue in terms. That's why we are taking Safeguarding Day to have our public awareness campaign around this, to ensure that services do know their obligations under the Act, and that they do then understand that they must take steps to assist and support people who are entitled to that support under the law.
All right, Patricia, we got there in the end, and thank you for your patience with us this evening. That's Patricia Rickard-Clark, Safeguarding Ireland chairperson. Thank you very much.
Now you can text us to 51551. You can WhatsApp the programme 0870 32 32 32. Now, if you've ever rolled into work thinking, sure, a bit of yesterday's eyeliner will do, well, you're not alone, it seems, because RTÉ 2FM's Aisling Bonner has taken that to a whole new level. She's on day 4 of what's being dubbed the Miriam experiment, because it's been inspired by Miriam O'Callaghan's revelation that she keeps her eye makeup on for a full week. And Aisling has bravely decided to give it a go herself, all in the name of journalism, of course. You're with us now, Aisling. You're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to get the respect for the experiment on this level.
Is it all caked in? Nice and stodgy.
Yeah, listen, I did a quick lash analysis there before I came on, because I wanted to give you the most up-to-date information. I think there are maybe 6 kind of eyelash clusters stuck on across the 2 eyes. I think 3 of them are on the blink. Pardon the pun.
Oh my God. Look, I have a little bit of experience, not as much as Sarah here. I have with TV news previously. I've done it, and
not with eye makeup.
Not with but makeup. And I know how it gets caked in, especially if you leave it. And recently, in the heat in July in the US, I wore makeup for a TV documentary, and I could not wait, Aisling, to get it off. Get it off. So how are you doing it for 4 days?
Do you know what I realised just there? That I'm actually only halfway through. And it does feel like it's been going on for a fair bit longer than 4 days. And I'd say my Instagram followers feel the same, because I've been posting relentlessly about it. You know, a lot of it, I have to shout out to Miriam herself. She's been sending me tips every single day. You know, she says, top up the eyeshadow here. If a lash comes off, have your glue handy so you can stick it back on. This isn't just out of laziness that she does this. This is like a practiced approach. I have the utmost respect for it.
No, I mean, I mentioned, Aisling, when I saw that she was talking about this on the podcast, that she breezes into RTÉ makeup on a Tuesday evening looking fantastic, having the same eye makeup on that she had a week previously, and then gets it changed. Like, it's just unbelievable, but it works. So, and it looks good still. Does it look good still for you? Like, I sleep on my face. This would never work for me.
I think I'm lucky enough in that I seem to be a back of the head sleeper that I'm learning this week. So I haven't lost any lashes in the night. My pillows look clean enough. But like, honestly, if you don't look too closely at kind of the glue that's kind of coming away from like about a metre away, it looks really good. Yeah. It really does. And it's been really handy, because yesterday I had a wedding. Tonight I have the day 2 of the wedding. Tomorrow I have a 30th birthday. And sure, it'll take me about 10 minutes to get ready.
I mean, you could carry a metre stick and keep people a metre away.
And how's it been at the wedding? You know, I mean, you know, because you want to look good. Like, do you feel like you look good? It's all good, as long as people don't get too close.
Because I feel absolutely fabulous. I couldn't do these lashes myself. Yeah. So to get the value out of them, and I did go to the RTÉ makeup department, just, to obviously have the complete Miriam experience. So I got to shout out to them because I think it's surprising everybody how good it looks at this stage.
Yeah. You mentioned that Miriam did give you a bit of advice. I think we have a clip of some of that advice here, do we? We may or may not. we don't have the clip yet. We'll bring it to you when we have it. But I know as well, actually, you've been talking about how some people have been getting in touch, wondering about the hygiene for this. Is it okay? Or infections? Or I think you mentioned eye mites.
Yes. Oh, I never knew there were so many different infections that you could get in your eyes, because I've learned about all of them this week by people fully convinced that I'm going to be blind by the end of this experiment. I can tell you now, I haven't had a single issue with my sight. There's no weird pus or goo coming out my eyes. People are a bit dramatic now, I think. I would go a few days without washing my face if I wasn't wearing makeup, and I'll hold my hands up to that. Guys, we're all good. We're sleeping in clean sheets.
Yeah.
I don't think anything untoward is going to happen because I have a few bit of eyeshadow on for a few days.
I hope you're right. Listener says, surely this is a bit risky for eye health, infection and so on. Anyway, let's hear from the guru herself. Here's Miriam's advice.
1, I use the individual lashes, not a strip. I think that helps them stay on. Okay. 2, I take the mascara off on my bottom lashes every night just to make sure I can cleanse and moisturise and put all my anti-aging creams on my actual face. And thirdly, you can't have a shower with water on your head, obviously. So it suits me because I've got a fringe, and I just wash my fringe every morning with a handheld shower part of my shower, and I get a blow dry once a week.
Well, I, for one, will never watch Primetime in the same way again, I must say.
She's got it down.
She does. And
this is how a busy mother of 8 with a high-profile career manages.
And when you look as glamorous as Miriam, who am I or anyone else to... Tell me this, though, Aisling. You're going to do this, keep it up for 7 days, are you?
Yeah, so the live removal of the look will be on 2FM Breakfast on Tuesday morning. So that will bring us up to a full 7 days. So I have to get through the weekend of a busy weekend, another Monday, waking up in the morning with it. Waking up is kind of the worst bit, because I will say there's a slightly bigger sleep crumb in the corner of my eye. Sorry, I need to be graphic. Than usual. But other than that, no bad results so far.
OK, well, look, we'll be tuning in like the rest of the nation, of course, on that day, day 7, and I hope you last until then. Anyway, Aisling Bonner of 2FM, thank you.
You can text us to 51051 with your thoughts on that or anything else we're discussing on the programme today. Now, Ireland has previously been identified as having the highest rates of reported loneliness in the EU, and new research from the ESRI looks at its prevalence and its broader potential impact on individuals and society. With all the details, we're joined by Greta Moran, who's research officer at the ESRI. Greta, you're very welcome. For me now, there's lots of interesting bits and pieces in this report, but the one that really stuck out to me was that people aged between 15 and 29 are among those most likely to experience loneliness.
Sure. Yes, so about 14% of our population are experiencing loneliness, but certain groups are more vulnerable. And it came out really, really clear that younger people, 15 to 29-year-olds, are more acutely lonely. This is a sort of new phenomenon. Previously, it was kind of in the realm of older people, but we're also seeing other segments of the population, like those who aren't born in Ireland originally, experiencing more frequent loneliness. It's very socioeconomically stratified. Unemployed and those whose main activity is looking after the home are also more likely to experience loneliness, those with a disability. But the most crucial factor that really emerged was those who reported a lack of social support, those who say that they have few people to count on if they have a serious personal problem. They were the ones who were really, really coming out strong as having suffering from loneliness.
And if I can stick with the people under 30 for the moment, because they are more connected in terms of social media, I suppose, and WhatsApp groups and whatever it might be, Snapchat, I'm showing my age now, than any of us have ever been before. So is it that those are not real social connections that they're forming, or are those social connections replacing actual in-person connections, which is causing the loneliness? Make it, how do you square the circle here, that they are so connected and yet so lonely?
Sure, yeah. So obviously social media and screen time play a big role in young people's self-esteem and self-expression these days. But those sort of online friendships, while they can provide some supplementary connection for particularly vulnerable groups like disability or such like that, for the majority of people, they don't replace real life in-person connection. And we're seeing this more and more in the data in Ireland, in the US. The US Surgeon General came out with a big report on this. And it seems that our online lives are contributing to this sort of modern day epidemic of loneliness.
On Liveline during the summertime, I spoke with a man in Donegal, Nathan, who opened up about his loneliness. And hello to Nathan if he's listening. He's a regular listener of this programme and others on Radio 1. And he told us, Greta, that the radio keeps him company. He goes days sometimes without seeing people. Really, really brave and courageous and eloquent man. Are there other things that people can do then to combat loneliness?
Sure. Well, that's a lovely example, and it certainly is important. But getting out there and hopefully strengthening your social networks and finding community are key antidotes. So trying to cultivate new or reconnect with existing, confidence. So be that joining a club or a group. So for an older person, it might be the local Thursday club or men's sheds, or for younger people, the likes of sports or running or book clubs. The Irish language is having a bit of a revival, and there's lots of Kirkle choras going around. So it's to focus maybe in those groups on the activity rather than sort of forced conversation, and hope that sort of connection and friendship emerges from that. But also there will be groups of the population who are especially burdened by loneliness, and it is important that they seek support. So be that through their local GP, counsellors, healthcare professionals, and social prescribing can kind of help connect these people to groups and hopefully promote their well-being and social connectedness.
And is there anything else then, just finally, that you think the government can do to help? Because you mentioned the social prescribing. We talked to GPs about that in this programme before. Is there anything else?
Sure. Well, on the policy side, it is important that the government implements these kind of integrated mental health strategies that prioritise social connection. And a really important element of that is investing in social infrastructure, so accessible social spaces, opportunities for communities to come together and have activities across the country. And these need to bear in mind, obviously, culturally sensitive groups, so those born outside of Ireland, those with disabilities. But also what's been very powerful in some areas have been public health campaigns. So we might think of recent efforts to reduce stigma associated with debt or mortgage arrears. And these kind of campaigns have been really powerful in promoting well-being of younger adults and older adults in other countries.
Greta, one texter says we finally realise that social media is actually anti-social. Brilliant, and that is an interesting observation. Dr. Greta Moran, Research Officer at the SRI, thank you very much.
Anish, Matt Hayden, August Mark Bow.
Thanks, Cormac. Well, the weather over the next couple of days is going to be rather unsettled, I'm afraid, all down to a large area of low pressure in the Atlantic, kind of sending a sequence of weather fronts our way. But the silver lining is it'll actually stay a little bit milder than normal. That's kind of the trade-off you have this time of the year. You can have milder but wetter weather, or colder but drier. Now tonight anyway, we've the last of that rain and cloud moving off northern counties there this evening. It'll be leaving behind a mix of clear spells and just the odd isolated shower for tonight. Now, it is going to be mild tonight, lows getting down to around 4 to 9 degrees, which is about 3 or 4 degrees above average still. Now, tomorrow on Saturday, we'll start out largely fine and dry with sunny spells, but cloud is going to build from the southwest, with rain arriving into Munster by late morning and then spreading throughout the country during the afternoon and evening. We'll see highs on Saturday still around 13, maybe 14 degrees. Sunday then will be a mix of sunny spells and scattered showers with a southwesterly breeze and highs again of 12 to 14 degrees. Now, Sunday's probably looking like the best of the 2 days of the weekend, so do make the most of it because the rain returns for us all early next week. So before all then, I'll leave it there for now. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you very much indeed for that. 51551. Some of your texts on loneliness. Well done for covering the topic of loneliness, as one listener, and the kind way we reached out to Nathan. And local libraries, says another, have great information. Also choirs, especially for young men or anyone. There's a shortage and you don't have to have a great voice. Look online for local groups. Well, that counts me in on that one anyway. Yeah. But it's a great initiative, all right.
Another person says, as a 33-year-old woman, I believe social media, along with remote working, has been the ruination of social connection. It's changed and stunted human connection. I live alone and go months without anyone seeing anyone apart from people in grocery shops. This is a 33-year-old woman saying she lives alone and goes months without seeing anyone apart from people in grocery shops. She says it's very difficult, and once people have their circles, they're very reluctant to branch out. We've become lazy in our attitude towards maintaining and growing relationships. So thank you for reaching out to us this afternoon with that insight, and hopefully that situation improves for you. 51551 if you want to get in touch. Now, almost 42% of doctors practising in Ireland were trained abroad. That's according to the Medical Council's latest workforce intelligence report. That includes more than 1,200 doctors from Sudan. But while these internationally trained professionals form the backbone of our health service, the Medical Council say they are increasingly facing racial abuse and discrimination, even as colleagues abroad face violence and deadly attacks in conflict zones. For more, we're joined on the line now by Dr. Suzanne Crowe, who's President of the Medical Council. And Suzanne, you're very welcome. I know the Medical Council has highlighted this rise in racial abuse towards healthcare workers here in Ireland. What kind of incidents are being reported?
Thanks, Sarah. Largely the incidents are of verbal abuse. And then there's a small amount of physical attacks being reported. Some of these are in the hospitals and in the health service, and others are just when doctors are out and about bringing their children to school or doing their shopping. And it's really concerning.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And are there particular sectors that are more badly affected? I mean, for example, is it in emergency departments, is it community settings, or is it across the board?
It's across the board, but it's definitely in the emergency department because tensions are high there and emotions are running high, and you can understand why it would happen. And healthcare staff actually give patients and families a lot of understanding because it is a difficult situation. But we are getting reports, as I say, from outside the hospital and also in nursing homes and in the community, because we have a lot of international staff giving care in people's homes and in nursing homes, and they're also facing attacks there.
And do you know the reasons for all of this, the rise in abuse? Is it connected to the more heated debate that we're seeing now more generally around immigration?
There is a background of overall increasing aggression in healthcare, and that's going on really since COVID and onwards. Just a lot of anger within the system. So there is that for everybody working in healthcare. But I do think that this is where we're seeing the effects of this rhetoric on migration. It's translating into groups of young people and older people surrounding doctors in a car park or surrounding doctors in a supermarket and shouting abuse at them.
You have said, and I know politicians have said this as well very regularly, and I think most people are very aware that Ireland's health system will collapse overnight without these internationally trained staff, and as you mentioned, in nursing homes and caring roles right across the health system.
Yeah, we're actually really proud of the diversity that we have in healthcare. And I think as a nation, we are grateful to people who've made Ireland their home and who've come to look after Irish patients. And healthcare is supported by us being a tolerant and caring society. So our health service and our patients need healthcare staff from a variety of different countries, particularly Pakistan and Sudan.
Do you think what is being reported here might even be underreported?
There's no doubt that it is, because lots of doctors have spoken to me about it and have said that a lot of the time they just feel like they won't be taken seriously, or they just say, shrug the shoulders and kind of move on because they don't want to draw further attention to themselves. They're already feeling under pressure. So it is underreported, and that's why I think as the Medical Council we have to speak to it and let them know that the health system is listening, believes them and definitely denounces these attacks.
Because there will be, I mean, we all know the health service is not the easiest place to work. It's a very high stress environment in a lot of instances. But then to have this additional emotional burden must be very difficult. And I know that some doctors have told you in the past, you know, they wanted to come to Ireland because they felt it was a very safe and tolerant country. So this may be a very nasty surprise that they'd be encountering abuse like this.
It is, and it's always been something actually that I think we felt very proud about, is that many doctors from Pakistan and India and the African subcontinent have chosen Ireland specifically because it is known to be a very tolerant and safe country. And now this is happening. And many doctors, you know, what's going on for them in the background is their families, their extended families back in other countries are under, you know, living in extreme situations. And so doctors are also carrying the worry of that.
Yeah, because as I mentioned, many of the doctors who are working here are from Sudan, and the council, I know, has condemned recent attacks on healthcare workers in conflict zones such as Sudan and Gaza and Ukraine. Can you talk to me about some of the situations they're facing there on a daily basis?
Well, I mean, I think the best example is just the report of the attack on the Saudi hospital last week in northern Sudan. I mean, I think this was more than 500 people were killed, healthcare staff were kidnapped, and that's just one incident. So not only is it physical and verbal threats, but you're having kidnapping and killing, and it is the deliberate targeting of people who are working in healthcare. It seems to be that this is now considered a legitimate way by collapsing a health system. That's how you can actually collapse the country.
You think a precedent has been set here in what we've seen in recent years where the international community hasn't responded to the collapse of a healthcare system, for example, in Gaza, that now we're seeing it repeated elsewhere, and again the healthcare or the international community is not responding?
Yeah, I think that is the case. I mean, if you look back at the high ideals that were set out in law after the atrocities of the Second World War, you know, it was that healthcare workers and humanitarian workers would not be targeted, they would not be attacked, they'd be safe to do their work. And that has been completely trounced. That has been completely set aside. And now humanitarian workers are seen to be considered legitimate targets.
Just finally, and to go back briefly to the survey showing that doctors here are undergoing racial abuse, is there a need, do you think, Suzanne, for some sort of education campaign by the government to remind people of the extent to which we do rely on international workers coming here to help us in the health service?
Yeah, I'd really love to see that. I think that there's a real human story to be told there, you know, about the person who's working in Tesco, the person who's working in a restaurant, stocking our shelves, working in our health system. I think we need to see those people, see the humanity behind them, and to really understand that these are people just like everyone else. They shouldn't be afraid to leave their house or go to work. They should be just left in peace.
Dr. Suzanne Crowe, President of the Medical Council, thank you very much. Well, that is all from us for this evening, and indeed that is all from us on this programme, because the very talented and lovely Colm, Mongáín and Katie Hannon will be taking over the reins on Drive Time next week. They'll be starting at the earlier time of 4 o'clock, and you will be in very safe hands with them. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you to everyone who has tuned in over the last 6 years. There have been so many huge stories, Cormac, from the COVID pandemic. We started in the COVID pandemic. That ran straight into the war in Ukraine. We covered the devastation in Gaza. We had the general election, European election, local election, presidential election. And I am so proud of how we covered those stories on this programme. In a very large part, thanks, I'm going to try not to get emotional, thanks to a brilliant team led by Will Hanafin. And they all work so hard every day to get the best guests to give us the best insights and the best analysis that we can find. We've loads of brilliant team members. Some of them are out there in the box, but we can't name them all because there's just too many of them. But I think their hard work was very rightfully recognised when Drive Time won Best Current Affairs Show at the Radio Awards last month. So thank you all so much. And finally, it has been an honour and a pleasure to present this show with you. It's not easy to co-present. You need a lot of patience, you need a lot of understanding, a lot of trust, and luckily I have that in spades. I think you're a brilliant broadcaster. I think you're a brilliant colleague, and it has been a pleasure.
Well, look, not for the first time on Drive Time, she's taken all of my words and my sentiments and my messaging. No, look, genuinely for me as well, a heartfelt thanks to the team led by Will. Really creative, hardworking and patient, especially people. It's good to finish on a high, I must say, with the IMRO Award, the latest increase in listenership. And for me anyway, the surprising outpouring of affection from our listeners, which I genuinely say to you, we're surprised by, but I'm so thankful for. And to my co-presenter, it has been a real pleasure to work with you. And we were talking off air there, the professionalism, supporting each other, but staying out of each other's way.
Yeah, it's very important to stay out of each other's way. It is.
But I am indebted to you, and thank you so much indeed. The very best of luck to Katie and Colm next week. We will chat to you separately on various programmes. Ach Winyer Fa the Chordia gur Mila Magaf.
Here is To the Future, and that is all from us for today. The programme today was produced by series producer Will Hanafin. Research was by Fiona Donlan. Broadcast coordinator was Emily Hurley, and Tom Norton was on sound. Up next is Cans Kicks from all of us here in Drive Time. Take care.
Drive Time on RTÉ Radio 1, sponsored by Zurich. Here in Ireland for over 40 years. That's 4 decades of trust, reliability and expertise. Visit zurich.ie.